I'm James Sykes, CEO, President, Baselode Energy Corp. I'm here talking with Cameron McKay, who was up at site when we started drilling our Catharsis project. Cameron, how is it going today?
It's going really good. Yeah, we're excited with some of the early results from this drill program. So that's what we're here to share.
Yeah, these are great results. I was stoked to see the pictures. Let's kind of unravel the news release and let's provide a little bit more context behind everything. So a forward-looking statements as they are. But we'll talk a lot about hematite and limonite, which is the yellower color. But hematite being that red color is typically synonymous with uranium mineralization globally in any kind of deposit. It's the two are quite prevalent. So you can see in this image there, mineralized fractures and breccias. Again, you're looking for breccias, which are breaking the rocks and allowing porosity, allowing fluid to move through. And if those fluids are oxidized, which are these red colors, hematite rich, and carrying uranium, you've got a great environment. You've got the right fluid systems. So when we take that idea and bring it back home to the Athabasca and start looking at some of these basement hosted uranium deposits, Cameco's Eagle Point mine, for example, when you have these stellar grades of uranium, what are they associated with? Well, it's hematite. It's very common. You can have hematite spattering throughout, but and that is a pathfinder, especially in the basement rocks. But again, when you want to find these high concentrations of uranium, you really follow hematite. You got to follow that oxidized fluid system. Even over at NextGen's Arrow, what were we finding? Well, we were finding hematite that was associated with uranium. Same thing, another basement hosted deposit, Orano's Pea Patch deposit, which is near the Key Lake. You see red, you see radioactivity, you see uranium. UEC's Raven deposit, mineralization is red, or associated with the red in the contact. So there's a great example of your redox fronts right there, just with the gray going into the red. So that's basically what is meant by redox. Red being oxidized, the orange also being oxidized, uranium occurring as black at the interfaces, and all of the gray rocks are reduced. So the reduced part of the redox equation. And even at the mine pit scale. So this is the Orano Susi deposit, and there's a truck down at the bottom for scale, at least the top of a truck, but you can still see the idea that the red hematite oxidized system really shows up. And in that black and green area to the bottom right is mineralization, is the Susi deposit. So again, even in the sandstone roll front deposits, which are prevalent in the US, you have hematite associated with uranium, but not every single roll front is mineralized. They are sporadic. Their mineralization can be followed. But to find the roll fronts or to find roll front mineralization, the best way to find them is to follow the roll fronts themselves, is to follow that redox front, because you're not going to have mineralization without it. So you do have to follow the hematite. And this idea of sandstone roll fronts is something that I have been working on or have muddling around in the back of my head for at least 10 years now, looking at the Athabasca structurally controlled roll fronts. And I think that there is a good plausibility for it. So now that we know a little bit more about hematite and its importance to the uranium environment, we're going to jump back down to our Catharsis project, where Cameron will kind of bring us through what we've seen so far in the first three drill holes that we do find very exciting.
Yeah, so this first target area is this D target area. So this is where we started off. We've got 3 holes in it so far. The reason we've got 3 is because we kept liking what we were seeing, and so we're chasing the system that we hope will lead to discovery. So the first hole was this CT24009, and you can see that on the right-hand side of the screen, it's sort of a broad metasedimentary package, the gray being a graphitic metasediment. And within that metasediment, there's a brittlely reactivated shear zone. And so this is part of that. There's sort of these semi-concordant pegmatites that float in and out of this metasedimentary package as well. And you can see from this picture that they've been brittlely broken, faulted in multiple generations, actually. So you can see these like nice angular clasts floating in this quartz matrix. And then if you look just to the left of the 172 marker, You'll see a sample tag there, and like it's got sort of a darker color to it. There, that's a second generation of quartz, and that black stuff in there is actually the same feldspar minerals, but it's just been chloratized. So, just the main point being that this area has seen multiple episodes of structural deformation and fluid events. So it's an active area, and it's seen multiple pulses of fluids, which is what you want. 'Cause lots of times these things, they need sort of what we call a ground prep phase. So there's usually, it's one of those things like once a fault, always a fault. So they get reutilized over time. So it's really encouraging when you see these multiple generations of faulting and fluid events. And so at the base of this one too, there's this structure of interest that we have here. And it's forms at the contact between this broad metasedimentary sequence and felsic intrusives at the bottom. So there's a nice rheology contrast, so competency contrast between those rock types, and it's a nice spot for things to break. And in the first hole, while we didn't have any visible mineralization, and we actually unfortunately had some core loss in the area, we had a downhole gamma peak of about 1300 CPS. So definitely anomalous. It's not, it's not a high grade hit or anything like that, but it's something that you really like to see. And so this is that contact here. You can see on the bottom of the photo that's into sort of this like felsic orthonites plus minus pegmatites. And then in the upper part is the part of the metasedimentary sequence. It's mostly reduced in this particular case at the bottom, but there is some hematite floating around too. But major structural disruption. You can see how close these tags are together. It's where we unfortunately had some core loss, but it's because it's such a it's a brittle fault zone that everything's really rubbly. So when we're getting to situations like this, it's can be rough for recovery, but we're happy because of the excellent structure that we're seeing. So then moving on to drill hole 10, we followed it up dip on the next pad over, and we started to see a little bit more in the way of alteration at that contact. So you can see still, multiple episodes of deformation and alteration, but the alteration intensity and the presence of the oxidizing fluids in the form of hematite and limonite here really starting to increase, which is really positive. So like what James was saying earlier, we're chasing the proxies for mineralization, in this case, the oxidizing fluids. And so, yeah, this is very, very encouraging stuff. And so here's a close-up of one of those locations. And I think we have a comparison there we go, this is from Accio. And you can see very similar rock types, very similar style of hematite alteration, but just lacking that uranium mineralization in this case. That sample right there from Accio was over 1%. So it feels like we're in the right neighborhood. It's just we gotta hopefully track down those if there was uranium that came out of the system where it came out. Yeah, and again, just multiple fluid events. We've got these floating clasts that were previously reduced, and then it's floating in this oxidized hematite matrix. And then here's some slicken lines on a I guess that's a foliation plane, so we can make some measurements off of those and infer the slip direction. But again, just that good strong alteration. Here's a nice reduced brittle deformation, but again, there's hematite floating around in the system. Again, just reiterating multiple generations of fluid and faulting. And then finally, the last hole, the one that we just finished drilling, hole 11. This one had the strongest alteration and deformation. And so you can see this has got everything that you look for in a uranium system, except for the uranium right now. So we're hoping that we're close. We've got all the signs, and we're hoping that we're zeroing in on something, because yeah, you can see here too, like the green above, we got the reduced, then we got the oxidized, nice fluid contacts, structural contacts. And yeah, just more of the same. There's a nice, hematitic gouge that we see there in this fault zone, just strong hematite limonite alteration. Yeah, multiple generations. Yeah. And then this one here, you can see these quartz fragments. We've got this hematite quartz breccia. We see that in a lot of different places. It's been noted around other deposits that we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, it's nice to see. And then you can see there's the sort of official contact between the metasediments and the felsic intrusives right there, and that strong hematite alteration right at that contact.
Everything there is absolutely amazing. Like exactly as you said, that's what we want to find when looking for a uranium deposit. All of that looks like it should be a uranium deposit. And sticking with the quartz hematite breccias that you're just mentioning, they are prevalent in basement systems. That's we'll look at some of the deposits that we just looked at earlier on, but if we jump back to the Sioux deposits, you've got the ore zone on top, but then you've got this quartz rich breccia underneath it that's not mineralized. If we go back to the Raven horseshoe deposits and look at the Dragon Lake fault, which is not connected to the deposits, well, intimately it is as a plumbing system, which, as they believe, is it a fluid conduit for mineralization. You can see this hematite quartz system on the left-hand side of the image with multiple events of quartz happening in there. When we look back at Arrow, for example, too, same thing. There's a quartz hematite breccia and then a hematite altered myelinite shear, and they both sit above mineralization. So mineralization being basically that red ellipse, but the quartz hematite systems are well above mineralization. So again, are these fluid, unmineralized fluid pathways that lead us to mineralization? And if anybody was paying attention to the photos, they may have noticed all of these different quartz events in all of the holes. So if we go back to hole 9, we can see this quartz breccia with right near the structural contact. We can see other episodes of quartz veining down below. When we go back to hole 10, we can see multiple episodes of quartz intimately associated with the hematite in the area as well. Looking at the two examples, the very top drill hole, you can see the quartz coming in there, and there's the hematite that we looked at. Hole 11, you can see all of the quartz flooding in different areas within this, quartz flooding and quartz veining. So we do believe there's a lot of hematite and quartz throughout this area. So looking at some of these examples again, there's more quartz-rich environments. There's the quartz class that Cam was talking about within the breccia. There's what possibly looks like an altered granodiorite or pegmatite, and just quartz flooded. So if we are seeing the same type of hematite quartz system, does that indicate that we are on the edge of something? I hope so. I really do hope so, because that's a lot of these core photos, a lot of what we've seen, are very compelling. These are things that you can find on other deposits, quite common. Like even seeing an example of acheo mineralization that looks very close to what we've just seen here at on our Catharsis project. Very encouraging. So hitting mineralization or hitting radioactivity in our first drill hole. Again, that was a credit to the technical team and the guys up in the field, guys and gals all up in the field. Uh, Cam, you've all done a wonderful job out there. So where do we go from here? How are we going to follow this up?
Well, I mean, again, like I think that the takeaway is that from the examples that we showed, like these quartz hematite systems, they tend to be spatially associated with uranium deposits. So that's what we're hoping. And so right now the priority is going to be to test down dip on this line and then potentially up dip as well, because the oxidized fault did tend to get a little bit stronger as we go up. But then obviously along strike to the north and the south as well. We feel like we're in a good area. The geophysical anomalies within this area are broad. We're talking we could go easily another 500 meters to the north and south and still be within the large gravity anomaly that we're currently targeting. So yeah, up and down dip and then along strike.
So we had previously planned to explore target areas A through D, but now after seeing just these three drill holes and all the encouraging results, that even if there's no mineralization in target area D, again, we've seen all the right indications that there could be and that there should be mineralization in this area. So we've basically added more target areas to fast track some of these targets that we really like, that we think have a really good chance of finding a basement hosted deposit. Uh, we've added specifically to the west side of target area D, uh, target areas E and G, because they are on that fold part of the structure that really goes against the whole grain of the entire region. And to move rocks like that, you have to put them under a lot of force and a lot of pressure. So hoping that we can see stronger structures than what we've seen in hole D, and hopefully more encouraging fluid flows and uranium in any one of these target areas. In all of them would be preferential, but we can only hope at that point. Very happy with everything we've seen. Thank you very much, Cam, for going through the drill core and showing some of those photos, explaining everything. And yeah, man, I'm amazed that there is no mineralization with this drill core. I really am.
Certainly looked like there could have been.
There could have been. Yes. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully down dip proves to be successful and along strike, and then we'll go from there. But let's keep drilling. We've got more meters to drill now. We're looking at 4,000 meters. We've got more target areas to drill. So happy exploring moving forward for the rest of March.